When calculating the total amount of flow to a wastewater system so that the pipes can be sized correctly, there are two main inputs: the number of people contributing to the line, and the infiltration area contributing to the system. All other inputs are geometry dependent. The wastewater flow calculator uses property sets to distinguish polylines as services to a sewer main. This allows us to use Dynamo to pull in the geometry of our services and count the number of intersections with our main line so that we can start to calculate the total flow in the system. It also utilizes layer control. In this example, all objects on the GWW area layer are also loaded into the Dynamo for analysis. To link the infiltration areas to the system, I use the manhole location. Each infiltration area should have only one manhole in it. The inputs for the Dynamo are the file path to the Excel template that I will include in the documentation, a Boolean input to determine whether you want to write the data to Excel or not, the network name, and the name of the layer that the infiltration area is associated with. I have included several checks to ensure that the program is working correctly, the first of which will count the number of services against the number of intersections counted. All services that are correctly counted will turn red.
Within, here we go, company, CAD standards, Dynamo, Wastewater, and you can see the sewer service property set. To add that, you're going to go to the define property sets, you're going to open that drawing I just showed you, and you're going to drag it into your property sets within this drawing. So within this property set, we have the service type, which can be custom, double, or single. If you choose custom, then you can enter a custom value, but this one's just a double, so we'll leave it there. So that's the first part of the wastewater flow calculation. The second part is your I&I areas. These are just the areas that are going to be possibly infiltrating the pipe. So we have to account for rainfall that could enter when we're sizing these pipes. And so the wastewater flow calculator does this by associating a polyline, a closed polyline, on the layer wastewater areas with an explanation point in front of it, and detects the manholes within it. So one area should have a single manhole in it, and it will enter that data, or the area that this line is, into our spreadsheet for us. The rest of the data is actually just contained within the pipe network. So the slope, the size, all of that, or in its downstream pipe, is already in the pipe network. So all we have to do is write it to our file. So I'm going to go into Dynamo. And we're actually going to have some inputs within this Dynamo, which is wastewater flow calculations, but with property sets, it allows us to have all of our services on the same layer, which we've had in the past. So in here, we have our inputs. At first, I'm not going to write to Excel. There's no reason to. We don't know if the model's set up correctly. And I put some checks in the program so that you can ensure that your model is correct. I have this right here that is a service intersection check. So it's going to count the number of services Dynamo pulled in, and it's going to compare it to the number of services that we've got intersections of. And if those numbers aren't equal, this is going to be false. So if you have, it's done by pipe network. So if you have multiple sewer pipe networks in the same drawing, I suggest when you do one network, cut your services and put them in a temporary drawing while you calculate the others. The other inputs are the Excel path, which we're just going to choose a file within our calculations folder that we make from our template. I'll go ahead and make that right now. So same folder, templates in there, and go to and paste that in. I'll name it the project name and then the network name, because these are per network again. But we're not gonna run it. We're not gonna write it this first time, and I've put in the network name. But I'm gonna run it just to see if that check is true. So when it's running, if it doesn't intersect with that, or if it doesn't count it as an intersection, it's gonna keep it the same color. Otherwise, it's gonna turn it red, which you just saw. So our intersection check here is false, but right here we see this one, that's not red, so I'm gonna fix it. And this really helps if, instead of going and looking at every single one to be like, oh, does it touch? Does it touch? You don't have to do that anymore. You can just look at it and see, oh, it's not red. So those two are not touching. Let's run it. And it's completed. Our service check is true. So we're good to write it to Excel now. So I've already made that template in my calculations folder. Right here. So I'm gonna go to that path. And then I've set it to true. I'll just go ahead and run it now, the final time. And you'll see the Excel sheet pop open, write in all the values, and will be all of your wastewater pipes will be solved for. So there it goes. It starts writing it in. We've got some data starting to populate, and there it goes. It's done. So we've calculated all the flows, yada yada. I did have a custom, so that's where the 100's coming from. This one I had custom because I have some residential, multifamily, and commercial that I'm not really sure. So I just put in a dummy value of 100 for now. But we have all of our data here from our service count and our wastewater I&I areas. It's already set up to look at the segment name. And then on this side, we have our slope that was populated, the Manning's roughness, and our diameter. Or I guess the Manning's roughness isn't pulled, but the diameter and the slope is pulled from the pipe network. So it guarantees that you're always going to have the right value in here. So this all looks good. Our numbers are there. I'm just going to go ahead and save this now. and we can start labeling the data onto our profile views. So I'm going to start that process in Dynamo. I'm going to go and open, and I'm always going to press node to save. I'm going to go to wastewater profile labels now. And its input is going to be that same spreadsheet. And then we have our network name in there. And again, if you find yourself that you're writing a bunch of data manually, you don't need to be doing that. Just tell me. There's probably a better way. But I'll run this, and it's going to automatically add a property set, the other property set that's found in the Dynamo folder, the Wastewater Dynamo folder, sewer PS. You'll want to add that into your drawing too. You don't have to add it to every pipe because the Dynamo will do that, but you need it in your drawing at least. So it opened our wastewater flow calculations and read it, and it should have assigned that data into this pipe. So there you go. We have our percent full, Q full W. We've got everything here. And so now we can just add a pipe network label. I have one set up called sewer data. Oops. And we could go ahead and add that in. And it's just automatically going to put all of our data that we used to have to manually enter onto the profile view at the press of a button. Sometimes when you first bring, if you import this sewer data pipe label style into a drawing, it's gonna need a little bit of editing. It'll end up saying this is some random property set, but what you do is just go over here to property sets, and then you can select what it has there, which is usually just numbers or something. But you can go Q full W and press it and put it in here, similar to properties. And just to finish it off, I'll go ahead and run the wastewater labeler. Profile labels util. I'm going to enter my network name into this input. And that's all I need. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And we've added all our labels. And you'll notice if it's double, it already assigned a secondary reference alignment. So you don't have to worry about any of that. And that's, I've had this issue where it will populate this in the center of this structure instead of at the bottom. So maybe you have to pull those down. I don't think it's too big of a deal if you don't. But yeah, that's basically the whole wastewater design process, at least for sizing. I didn't go over any of the lateral or vertical design, but that's how you get the calculations very quickly. Thanks for listening.